You're not going to go and open it up for anyone to watch.
True.
You can't do it at your desk. Wherever you do it, you have to literally be in hiding. But this is a child's meal. This child is not just my child. This is a child. This is Uganda's future human capital, Africa's future human capital. And I'm feeding them from the toilet. I'm feeding them from outside in a parking lot behind a car.
As if they are lesser citizens.
Exactly.
So how best can places of work set up these breastfeeding centers?
Okay, so the question you had asked me was, you know, what kind of room?
Yes.
That's why I wanted to.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to paint the scenario of our current reality, so that when we say, should we give them a corner, should we give them a big room, in terms of looking at the infrastructure for us as a corporate organization, what does that look like? Let us not look at these centers as Olive's baby. This child will one day work for UBC TV.
True.
Let's not look at this child as Manuela's baby. One day that baby is going to be in Parliament. One day. The advantage that we had was, for many of us, our mothers breastfed us from home, because the economy at that time could sustain a mother staying at home. That's not the reality right now. And so women need help, okay? So when a corporate organization says, or even a marketplace, the KCCA markets, or even malls, when we say that we are going to set up spaces for lactation for a mother, they might not be for breastfeeding. Breastfeeding means you need to bring the child. Lactation means I am pumping the milk, and I'm either sending it on a border home, or there's a fridge or a freezer available for me to be able to keep my milk or to store my milk. So when we're thinking about what kind of infrastructure we need in an organization or in a setting, we're thinking through who are the kind of women that we have in this place. How often do they express their milk? Should they bring their children into the center so that they breastfeed them? Because like I've shared, there's a difference between a breastfeeding center and a lactation center, right? So you think through all of that, but what's most important is that you're speaking to these women and you're asking them, what is your need? What is it that would make the process of breastfeeding this child easier or better for you? So that then you can come up with the best structure for the organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now an employer out there may be wondering, okay, if I set up this place, let's say we have a breastfeeding center, that means mothers have to bring their children to work. But how viable is that in a place of work? Does it mean, mother, bring your maid to mind your child as you work, then at 10 a.m. you go breastfeed your child? How would that really pan out?
That's a great question, because many organizations have actually tried that, bring the maid, but then what has happened is maids are maids.
Yeah.
Before you know it, your maid has told you they are leaving, they've gone to work at your manager's into your manager's house. But then also you have things like, and I don't like to say this, but it's just the reality. We live in an African society where people do things that their gods have sent them to do. And so you have maids in a room, yeah? And so that has not really panned out for many organizations. It would be nice to know if there is one that has been successful, but most of the ones that we've done consultation with, as long as they've brought the maid in, it has been very difficult to manage that kind of setting. You have people, this maid is stealing the other one's breast milk. You're just like, what in heaven is going on? So there's a lot of semantics in that area, which I don't really want to go into, but I know that for many organizations, they've had a hard time bringing in caregivers to come and from people's homes to come and care for their children. So many times what I advise organizations is have professional caregiving done.
Okay.
and let the parents pay a minimal fee. Because you see, when you think about it, the reason as to why she has a maid in her home is because of the child.
That's
But
true.
if she has brought the child to work, then she can get that fee and the 200, 300,000, pay it for a professional caregiver at the corporate organization. After all, now they are, I mean, there are so many ways you can think through an agreement between the organization and the professional caregiver organization. But you find that it's at a subsidized cost, and it can work if the parents can just put in a little bit, the corporate organization puts in a little bit, and you have professional care being done. And even when you're doing the setup, I'll always tell organizations that when you're doing setup, you need to think about the breastfeeding center almost like a gym. You don't want personal property being mixed up. So it can't be general. You can't just have a general freezer or a general fridge.
So how would you
There
handle
has
that,
to be-
given that you have hundreds of employees or workers?
It has to be a customized fridge. It really has to be a customized fridge. You don't just go down to former game or wherever and buy a fridge or a freezer and put it out
But
there.
you need to
It-
preserve breast milk.
Right, but you really do have to have a customized freezer where I can get my key, I can open, put in my milk, close, lock, walk away with my key.
Wow. So these fridges, in a way, would be compartmentalized, and
Exactly.
every person
Has their almost like like a gym.
Yes.
You never go into the gym and things are open. You have your own locker, even a spa. This is personal property. My
And it
breast
goes
milk is
into a
personal
child's-
property.
Yes.
I don't put it in a general area. If not, at the very least, have milk transported immediately into homes. But that is very hard because mothers breastfeed, or at least are expressing every 2 hours. So it might be hard to say, now let's get the milk and let us transport
sending
it
it
into your
home.
homes.
Yeah.
But I do remember that for myself, I used to transport it home because there was nowhere to keep it. So the borderman had to come in
Every 2 hours.
every 2 hours. Thank God the milk was not so much, because that was not sustainable.
So you
That was
didn't
far
do it
from
for too long.
sustainable. Yeah.
Okay. And there are mothers that have plenty of milk, whereby even the 2 hours you're mentioning may not pan out.
Right?
Yes.
That's why storage is one of the most important, when you're setting up in terms of the infrastructure. Storage of milk is one of the most important places to look at for a lactating center or a breastfeeding center. And that's why most people now prefer to bring their children. So it's kind of like almost, I want to say, it's hard to know which one to do, but you have to find the one that works well. And that's why I said in the beginning, it's best to speak to the moms. Would you prefer to come with your baby, or would you prefer to just lactate? And I'll tell many corporate organizations, they usually think that when I have my child on the bottom floor, I will not concentrate. If I have my child maybe on the bottom floor of the building and I'm up on 3rd floor, I will not concentrate because I know my child is there. Then I'm far less concentrated if my child is all the way in Kabalagala.
Actually, you're calling home. Is she sleeping?
Thank
Go
you
and
very
check and see.
much.
Maybe she's not breathing.
Exactly. So when you have a child closer for a mother, and I usually tell corporate organizations that it is important that this lactation center is treated as a professional lactation center. And that's why it's important to have professional caregiving done, right? Because there should be schedules under which the children's schedules are run. There's a time when they are all awake and all moms can come in and breastfeed. If you have more moms than your breastfeeding centers in terms of the chair, the ottoman, and how they can lay back and breastfeed the baby, then you have them come in shifts. So you have some children sleep 30 minutes earlier than others, so that at the 2-hour mark, you have some children wake up, get breastfed, go back to bed, Then the ones who slept later, their moms come in 30 minutes after the ones that came in first, after you've cleaned, after you've sterilized, after the place is safe for another mother to come in and also do her breastfeeding, or even just being able to express. So it is less, it's because I find that so many people who are setting up centers do it as, let's just do it. Let's tick off a box.
Let's
get this done. Let's put it there.
Let's get a room.
Let's put
mattresses,
it there. Thank you very much.
And we are done.
And we are done. And then they wonder why women are not using the room.
It's not comfortable.
It's not. It just does not work for them.
Yes.
So it's better to set up the right center for the women in your organization than to set up a center that will not be used at all. Because a center that is well done will be well utilized. Women will, because there are certain organizations that have centers and they call me wondering why their children are at the cradle. Yet they have a center at the corporate organization. And I'll say it's because of the way the center has been set up. The center has to be set up in such a way that it works for the women. Not against them. It works for the children, not against the children. So you find that they'll say, let's just put really quick book cartoons, put their bed, some mattresses, just buy toys there. Early childhood of those days cannot be used now. The children, the way we were born in our time, 40 years ago, and we were babies then, is not the same way you do childcare.
No, we are raising children differently. Childcare has really changed and evolved.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the centers that you're mentioning, what I hear in my head, it is more or less of a daycare.
Right.
At a place of work, but at a subsidized fee. Where you'd pay probably 1.5 to leave your child in a daycare, you may be subsidizing with your employer. They're paying a fee, I'm paying a fee, and at the end of the day, everyone gains something. And I am concentrating because now I know if mommy pangs bite, I'm going to go to the lower floor and check on my baby.
And it's interesting you say that because mommy pangs bite if there's no schedule. But if you have a schedule, because even if you really want to breastfeed but the baby is sleeping, you won't.
Yeah.
But if you have a schedule, your milk, your own breastfeeding apparatus will go according to the schedule, and so will your child.
That's true.
So that's why you need professional work done. Now, it might not be a daycare. A child care center would be great to have until a child is 3 years old. Why? This is the best place, that child care center is the best place to do immunization, so that mothers are no longer saying, I have immunization, and then they go for the 3 days, they go for the entire day, not 3 days.
Yes, immunization takes like an hour at most.
Thank you very much. But you can also understand that that centers are really busy. The child usually gets unwell right after the jab. But if I can go downstairs, there is a medical team coming in. They are going to do all the immunization. I have people at the 6-week mark who are going to, not 6 week, when they've done the 3 months and they've come back and maybe they've done an immunization at that point. I have professional people that know how to take care of that child when they've been immunized.
Yes.
There's a medical doctor who's close nearby. Why am I leaving the office?
Why won't you concentrate on your work?
Why won't I concentrate? I will concentrate, and if my child is really crying, they'll call me down and say, you know what, come and hold the baby. At least soothe the baby. I'm not worried anymore.
Yes.
I'm not. Even if I have a board meeting, I can even come down and hold my baby and have my laptop. If that is where if that's where I have to reach. I have a board meeting the next day, but the baby is not well and the baby is inconsolable and needs to breastfeed. At least you know that you don't have a mother who's having to choose one of the two. Because most times she'll be castigated for picking her career, or she'll be castigated for picking her child over one.
And we know that many moms, when they go into maternity leave, Sometimes they come back and the jobs are normal. And also having children makes women stagnate at a certain level in their career, because the employer is like, for you, you will have to go and breastfeed. You'll have to fetch your children for one reason or another. So you'll find that one woman, especially when women start having children, they are going to stagnate at some point vis-a-vis their male counterparts, because there are so many roadblocks. But if you take away this one roadblock and there is child minding at a place of work, I think all moms will now concentrate, and maybe we'll even avoid people coming back from maternity leave when they're pregnant.
Right. No, I like what you've said, because it's very true. Because, and I want to say this for everyone to hear, that the children we bear, they're not ours. They're not just for us. They're for this country. Each and every one of us here, we're not, even in this room, none of us is under our mother's wing right now.
No.
We're here.
Yeah.
But one time, a while back, we were being breastfed.
True.
But we are not for our mother, we are for this world. So the day we stop thinking children are for the women, we'll make life easier. Because right now, we are being put in difficult places in our career, because when God was picking who to give a uterus, it was me he picked. Every man in this room had 50% chance of being a woman.
And then
every woman had 50% to be a man. Did you choose?
No.
When you came out, did you say, may I want a uterus?
No.
No, you did not. But that's what happened for you. So why are you being castigated because of a choice you didn't make?
I hear you. Now let's talk policy. How can organizations implement supportive breastfeeding policies for breastfeeding mothers?
One of the things that we do really well as a country is a lot of theory. And that's why many times I fear policies. Because they're very good for paper. True.
Actually, we have some of the best policies.
And for me, my worry has never been policies in this country. Never. Not even for corporate organizations. We have some of the best documents around the world.
So what's your worry?
How do we implement them?
Implementation
is our biggest problem. The policies, you would be surprised how many organizations, even now, have very good breastfeeding policies for women. But they've never read the policy. Their HR policy, they've never read it.
Even the HR themselves may not know.
May not know. So the problem isn't for me the policy, because they'll come up with a policy. We'll do that really well. It's the implementation of that policy. Because there are so many options available. There are so many options available. But you have to pick the option, for me, in my opinion, that is great for the women in the organization. I mean, we have trailblazers like Bank of Uganda, which allows women to pick whether they're going to work in the morning hours or in the afternoon hours. But you'll find that while that works for Bank of Uganda because it is a government organization, you find that it won't work for a bank. In a bank, they would rather someone who can work all the 8 hours. So that policy will not work, at least not in favor of the women. Because at the point of recruitment, they will just not pick a woman. Olive, how old are you? I'm 20.
28.
No. That
this one is going to get pregnant.
How many children? That one looks like she will want 3. Those are 6 years.
So now mothers of childbearing age are likely to face a challenge in being hired.
Exactly. So the problem is not the policy, it is what policy works for the women in your organization. And for some, it's just as simple as having those centers, either childcare centers, breastfeeding centers, lactation centers at the organization, to just make the work of women who are giving birth to the children of this country a chance to make it.
Well, we did mention the cradle.
Yes.
Tell us more about the cradle.
That wasn't something I was expecting, but the cradle started in 2014. 1st June, we'll actually be celebrating 10 years this year. And the cradle Our vision is a Uganda, an Africa where women can pursue their full potential and yet still enjoy raising Africa's human capital. And so what we've done, what we're doing is we set up on-site and off-site centers for childcare and lactation. These centers are designed for the workplace. So when we come in, we are looking at your workplace, not just setting up a daycare, not just setting up a lactation center. It should be designed to work for your organization, for the women in your organization. And I mean, we've had probably about 1,000 families go through our hands. We're open 24 hours, again, because we are designed for the workplace. We have women who work at night. They're pilots, they are doctors, they have emergencies, and so we need to be open in such a way that that woman who's going to the workplace has a place where her children can go. Some of the challenges we've had over the past 10 years is people wondering why you would take your child to an institution for childcare. And many times I ask, so why would you give your child to
a relative, a maid,
an uneducated, uncaring,
untrained
childminder to raise for Africa? Because ultimately, I feel that if you're leaving a child anyway, you might as well leave them in the best care possible.
So there is something I once heard. If let's say I'm traveling out of the country for like 2 weeks, a month, my child can actually be handled at the cradle.
Yes, the baby can. However, we have policy in this country that cannot allow past a certain period of time because we've been moving towards getting children settled into their homes and into their families. So even if you're going away for 2 weeks, we require that you have a relative that can come and pick up the child, maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so they can go back into a home environment and then come back. Yeah.
Well, we've been having a conversation regarding empowering women by setting up lactation or breastfeeding centers in places of work. We can't go any further than this, but we have been lucky to have this conversation with Manuela P. Molondo, the brains behind the Cradle, and also one of the should I say founders or of co-hosts of BAMPLAV. Yeah. And I believe you can find her on all your social media networks. Good morning, Uganda continues.